pretty excited about our topic today. Ben and I had an amazing brainstorming session yesterday, like for the books, for the record. And I'm excited about some of the stuff we're going to roll out today. So the first, every month I give away a free tool for coffee experts. And we kind of will, delve into that a little bit so you can know what's in it. What I hate is sometimes when people are just like, hey, here's something free, totally worthless, and it's not going to do you any good, but it made me feel good to tell you it was free, and you'll never look at it. Like, that's not ever what I want to give people. Like, I want to give you good tools. And so we're going to look at Smartsheet this morning. Just for a couple minutes, talk through some things. I'm going to bounce over to Drew a little bit this morning. We're going to talk about drive-thrus. We've got a coffee client opening up a second location in Tennessee, and Drew's going to be heading out there and helping them with that, and has been working on phasing, and some different things for them to be thinking through. They're based mostly cafes, and little food for thought. A lot of folks east of the Rockies are not doing coffee the way we're doing coffee. Us west of the Rockies have a real way that we think coffee should be done. That's not how the whole new United States is doing it, and we are starting to influence the nation, but drive-thrus are not as big of a thing everywhere. So I'm pretty excited about Drew being able to go out there to Tennessee to our clients out there called Stomping Grounds and talking to them a little bit about that. So
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I live in LA area, and I feel like there isn't that many drive up places. So yeah. I can vouch for that.
Yeah, my girl moved down to San Diego and lived down there so I'm from Orange County all my life. I moved up here at 28. But my daughter just moved down there a couple of years ago, and she was like, yeah, the drive-through coffee isn't really a thing down here. There was like one.
It's like really Starbucks.
Being, like random, like
in San Diego. Yeah, there is. I thought I could work there. I realized that
a long commute. Simi Valley to San Diego is a long way
here. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into some stuff this morning, and we'll just get to talking. So yesterday, my man Ben and I were looking at Smartsheets and just talking through, Smartsheet has been something that's evolved for a long time. We've opened up dozens of locations with them. And it's something that every time gets better and better. I feel like we talked about last week how there's a lot of tools over here in the corner for the upgraded version. For the free version, it's just the sheets. All the automations are still there, but I tucked in some assets to make it extra juicy for those who want to do Experts Club and got the upgraded version. So in that, we talked about there's sample letter of intent. There's sample of a lease. There's some plans with some architectural plans, just so you can kind of get a feel of what those typically look like. A bid packet for the contractors, like when you put an RFP, request for proposal, out to contractors, so you get apples for apples coming back to you in regards to that process is there. But that stuff can be a little bit overwhelming, and truth be told, not the sexiest side of what people do with coffee. They're like, bro, listen, leases and intents and contractors are not my exciting point. But what can get a little more exciting is when you start getting into your new location open up. So a lot of this stuff north of the line is all prep, but I thought it would be fun. Well, Ben's idea, but I'm going to steal it for the call. Thought it would be fun to talk through drive-thrus and grand openings and what that looks like. Once you get your whole thing built, what does that look like? How should that work? I also am going to be taking a look at Slido, which is the tool that we're using to collect questions. Looks like some people have been dropping questions there already. I'm going to drop that in the chat for you real quick. That's not the best link. It might work. Try it. But anyway, if you have questions that you would like us to answer, we're definitely going to give time to question and answer in this call. So, Drew, man, calling in from Reno, down there with Tasha, like, you're the coveted position, bro. We all wish that we were down there just doing cool stuff in Reno with Tasha, including lists, I know. But I thought you could talk a little bit this morning about drive-thrus. I know you created this document for Drew and Tammy out at Stomping Ground, and it's is part of the Smartsheet as well. We dropped it in down low on the sheet around grand openings, but I just thought maybe you could talk through this a little bit, kind of where your brain space was at as you were writing it. I can slide down, I can show people different things, but we did make this a resource within the Smartsheet, and I thought you'd want to talk to it since you are the brainchild and the master of it.
Sure. So running, as we all know, can be very important for obviously car times. When you have a long line, you want to think in terms of the person on the back of the line and time compounds for each car. it adds up pretty quickly. You know, when you have 5, 6, 7 cars in line, that last guy's gonna be waiting a long time. So we've done a plethora of experimenting on how to run, what type of tools to use. We started with, you know, sticky notes and whiteboards, and you know, through trial and error, we did come across a good tried and true method of running. So I did throw this document together, from equipment to technique and pain points. What we ended up using for a good long period of time was just iPads and iMessaging. So we'd set up our iPads with their own addresses, and a communication system from each one. So you would send out a runner and they could just text, you know, in the orders from each car. And eventually, you know, we developed lingo, made it a lot faster, a type of shorthand, as we call it, for our drinks and for add-ons and for discounts. So this was just a phase 1 sheet that I put together. Has, you know, all sorts of the equipment that you want to use and links to, you know, the Amazon. We did find using equipment such as like a refurbished pads were cheaper and they work just as good as say a brand new one. And so we used those types of equipment. So we want to use one to send and receive, and then also one for backup, because baristas tend to, you know, we're always moving really fast. We can get clumsy, we can drop stuff. It just happens. Collateral damage, you know, things, these types of things can happen. So you always want something on backup. And another thing that we tried a couple different times was using some sort of like a smaller, like just an iPod Touch, because it's just a little more convenient. But it also kind of depends on what POS system you're using, whether or not you can compact it or consolidate it to such a small screen. So that's kind of at your discretion, and whether or not you're using something that would work like that. So the technique that we always used is awareness, awareness, awareness. So you want to know how many cars you have in line, which cars orders were tasked. And you create, of course, your baristas will find their own flow. The longer they're doing their running, everybody kind of finds their own language. So we always found it's ideal to send with at least 2 orders left on the screen. We'd send a runner around and they'd start taking all the orders. It's important to know, you know, which cars got taken. So a system of saying, you know, like the green SUV or like the silver Tahoe or something like that, so that the baristas know where you're starting or stopping. You know, once your flow has been established, you can also start charging outside. Something that I really liked about, we were always using Square for years. It's compatible really well with the iPods and iPads that we used.
Yeah.
So, and you know, once you find your flow, it's beneficial to charge outside, because then the interaction at the window is just really fast. You know, you say hi, you know, get your drinks, and they're on their way. So something that focus area that I was pinpointing was staffing. You know, scheduling is directly linked to the traffic flow, and well-trained baristas know when the orders have, you know, they stacked up enough to run inside and start helping again. Because, you know, once you get, you know, each car can get anywhere from 2 to 6 to 10 drinks, and a good barista on outside will know, okay, well, I can take two cars with 10 drinks maybe, and I gotta run back in and help. So through trial and error, you know, your running baristas want to be aware of how many drinks they've sent inside, so that they can run in and help. And then, you know, it starts really early in the morning sometimes. So the scheduling is going to be linked to when you want to start running. You bring baristas in a little bit early, and you can just stack up those numbers. You know, the more room you make in your drive-through, the more cars are going to be able to fit in there. And as you know, as I said, communication's key. So once you develop a system, baristas run in and out all the time. You want something that the person at the espresso machine can read really easily and quickly, and can communicate to the other barista. So a shorthand of some sort. And you want to always make sure that they're sending, you know, the way that you communicate on bar verbally, you also want to make sure you're sending that in through text the same exact way. And, you know, of course, a paid/cash system. We didn't really ever take cash in the drive-thru, because it's just a little bit more messy and disorganized. So we would just use cards. And it's beneficial for the baristas to make tips that way too, because if you do have the iPad out in the drive-thru, a customer paying, then you know you have an automatic $1, $2, $3 or 10%, 15% tip screen, and the barista can just, you know, send it like, hey, you know, this is your total, would you like to with us? And then they send in to the people, and, you know, make sure that they say paid, so that the customers don't get double charged. So, I mean, that was a quick phase one. Obviously, you can work into more complicated devices and more equipment as you're expanding and growing. But phase one was a simple message technique and just awareness of the baristas.
Love it, man. Thank you for that. I know that obviously a lot of people on this call are familiar with Touchpoint, and that there's a lot of automations around their line busters and different things that they put out in the drive, and obviously communication back and forth. What we were starting with, we'll always start you at the base and assume that you're not going to be paying into high ticket things. At Touchpoint, you have to have a certain number of locations, whether for them even to look at you and even make it available to you. So what we'll always give on the experts is like, hey, if you want to do it on the cheap, here's on the cheap. If you want to do something easy, here's on the easy. If you want to keep graduating up, just know we've worked up into, lots of locations, and so I think there are always questions around that we can answer, but realizing that's probably not going to be the majority of people on a call like this. So Ben, do you have anything that you wanted to tuck into that, or your thoughts around running system, your thoughts around maybe just the back end? I know you've had to do a lot of the back end setup for things like Square, things like Touchpoint, pain points on like products that you've got on your POS, maybe to talk about that, because I know Drew talked about lingo and payments. Talk about that.
Yeah, life-proof case is absolutely essential. Mm-hmm. You're gonna burn through iPads. I've seen so many dropped iPads in my life at roasters. So that's absolutely essential, number one. I mean, is everybody who all's using Touchpoint on the call? Is everybody on Touchpoint, or is it a little half and half? Yeah. So I would say, yeah, the iMessage was great. Some of the difficulty, on the tech end of it is, figuring out how to set up, because obviously these iPads and iPods, they're not LTE, they're just running off of your store's Wi-Fi. So you have to sort of text through email. I don't know if you've ever done that on an iPhone, if you're iPhone people, but you can actually just text somebody's email and it shows up in their iMessage as a text. So setting that up can be a little, a little odd if you've never done that before, but that's where your best friend YouTube comes in. I mean, that's what we did when we first set it up, was just YouTube everything. But yeah, I mean, the lingo, it's really funny. Like each shop just sort of kind of creates their own language, which is funny. Like they create their own shorthand. It just evolves over time, which is actually really fascinating to watch. Like a strawberry kiwi Red Bull becomes a strawy bull. And you're just like, how did that evolve? With just the kids, like they find out a way to like type shorthand, which is really cool. Technique, yeah, that's really cool. I would say definitely you're gonna want when it comes to your runners, it's always the toughest to figure out like at what point, when it comes to payroll, is my business warranting adding a runner? Right. Adding a second runner, and that was always the toughest point. I was like, well, if we add a runner, we could get 5 more cars in, which would warrant having that runner, but you're sort of always on that like baseline. Okay, do I add them now? Do I not add them now? We found that the easiest times to add runners, the times that made the most sense were obviously the morning shifts. That's when most of your traffic comes in, and you get all the way up to like the 11:30, 12 o'clock time frame, and then it starts waning down. And it's always been that sort of 12 to 1 time frame where we're like, okay, do we need a runner? Do we not need a runner? How many cars are we getting in? How many cars are we potentially getting in? And, not only having good baristas knowing how to run, but having a good manager, even if you're writing the schedule, have good eyes on, okay, our hours are creeping up. Like, I think that we're getting to the point where like we're holding ourselves back because we don't have a runner on this hour. Let's spend the payroll, drop that runner in for even, we always ran it, drop a runner in for a week, a week's worth of payroll, isn't free, but it's at least a good testing week to say, oh, shoot, our sales actually did increase on this hour because we had that person pushing the line through. And really that runner is the difference between a 40-second car or that car being a 2-minute and 40-second car. And if you can shave, if you can fit 3 cars in, or get 3 cars past your window in the time it would normally get you 1 past your window, I mean, you've effectively tripled your sales, you've paid for your runner, and you've made profit on that too. So it's a fun game to play, but it's absolutely necessary.
So real quick, maybe can we talk to that real fast? I know, and Corey, you made a comment on a shoulder harness for the iPads. I know that that's probably something BlackRock saw a lot of victory in, you know, and saving of the iPad. I wanted to talk real quick just about car times. I know we've seen car times great. You know, I think some people can say, well, I don't know if I want my baristas hurrying people. I want them to have good exchange at the window. What would you call a good set of time, Ben, and then maybe Drew just on the ground, how you would execute? Drew, I turned off your video too, brother, because your internet was breaking up on us.
Because I get tired of seeing your face.
No, you're a good looking dude, and I don't want you to take that personal. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we always had the goal of minute 30 car time or less. Obviously, that's impractical if you're talking about, you know, 5 24-ounce blended caramel, vanilla, everything else. Like, that's impractical, but that's a good goal. It's a sort of a baseline goal, and then you let people sort of kind of get flexible with it. But if you say, hey, minute 30 is our overarching goal, and then we can get flexible from there, but let's try and get there, that's great. With a running system, you know, ideally as fast as you can get, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, especially for those single drink orders, because then you're talking about that minute 30 goal now encompasses 3 cars. If I can get 3 30-second cars out, 12-ounce hot Americano, that's like 20 seconds, you know, enough time to take their money, say, hey, dude, see you later. Here's your Americano. They're basically driving up to the window with you, with your hand out with their drink. Like, as much as customers love the interaction, I've never come across a customer who doesn't love being able to swipe their drink and go immediately more than anything else. Like, that is the ultimate.
Unless
Like,
they're 60 plus, right? If they're over 60,
yeah. Unless it's Janine, who you see every Tuesday morning at 8:30 to come update you about her life. So yeah, if you can get the 30-second cars, which is totally possible if you have a good baristas with a good running system, and of course they know they're regulars, so they're probably out there typing while they see the car come in. 30 seconds is, I mean, I don't know if you can get much better than that. But definitely a minute 30 was like if this is a difficult order, if there's multiple drinks, we're going to shoot for a minute 30. And if we can do better than that, awesome.
Drew, what are your thoughts on the ground, brother?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, customer service, customer experience is a really high value of exactly what we do. But the customer is then getting the 2 experiences with 2 different baristas. So you got your charismatic barista out there running orders and saying what's up to them, and, you know, dancing around the drive-thru and having a good time. So, I mean, the customers do enjoy the quick coffee just as much as they enjoy the good experience. So, I mean, the quick coffee ties into the good experience. And, you know, if you do look all the time, then you know all the baristas and get to see 2 and spend, you know, let's say you spend 30 seconds with the person outside and then you do 30 seconds at the window. It's not really taken away from their overall guest experience.
Yeah.
I think too, obviously, right? Like, and it goes without saying, there are things that go without saying that we're assuming are part of your culture, which is you're memorizing your people that are coming through, you're memorizing names, you're memorizing drinks. All those things are going to help you with your speed. That goes without saying. Like, that's a cultural thing that we're hoping anybody that's doing coffee is doing, because that's why a lot of people come through drive-thru. I mean, that's why they're coming back to your stand every single morning. It's not always just about proximity. I know we have people tell us a lot at roasters about they would drive all the way across town just to see their favorite baristas. They drive all the way across town just to go someplace where I mean, right, it's like Cheers, like people want to go where they know your name. You know what I mean? Where they're going to ask you how your kid's doing, where they're say hi to your dog and they know your dog's name. They give you a pup cup, they give you a treat, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, people like that exchange. And so those things get assumed, but I think too, that can also help with your car times too. Would you guys both agree with that? As far as if you're memorizing up and you see Susie coming through and she gets, you know, her standard, I'm an Americano man, so Ben, you already used it, but like, I do an 8-ounce Americano anytime I pull through a drive, because I'm like, hey, I want it short and strong, because that's what I am, short and strong. Anyway, but like, I want it punchy. That's what I want my drink to be. I'm not looking for it to be watered down. So would you guys both agree, like memorizing and all those things aid in time?
Oh, absolutely. And even to that, I mean, we had seen locations turn around that were our slower locations, not getting a big customer base, just because they brought their speed up, and customers in the area, the neighborhood customers, started realizing, oh, I can get in and out of there in under 20 minutes. I might actually stop in now. Like, that was a big push too for some of our our downtown Kennewick shops, I think Carmichael, that was an issue. It was like
Yeah.
the customers were like, it's slow. Like they knew it was slow. They knew it was going to take a while. So they just didn't even bother getting in line. And once we started like getting their speed up, the customers were like, oh, wow, I actually can afford to stop here on the way to work because I'm not going to be late.
Yep.
And all of a sudden your stand, which you thought was just a, crap stand, never going to do well, is popping because you've got customers who are willing to come into the line.
Yeah. Drew, what are your thoughts, Drew? I know when we added timers, it was like game changer, right? When you put a display screen up telling people how fast they're going, and then you gamify it a little bit, and because I think that with that's next phase, right? So you cut into your drive, you drop your wires, you put up your screen. That's the first phase, provided that you didn't do that when you first built. Obviously, as you're dropping in new locations, you're dropping in those screens. That's what I would recommend, dropping in your timers, because it's just a good litmus test, right? It's something that people who are managing folks can see from afar. They can log in on the cloud. They can see what the Zoom timers are logging in at. And then, but the next phase beyond that is gamifying it, where you can, kind of pit stores against stores in a fun way. Like, hey, how's your times doing? How's this going? Oh, 395 is doing amazing, or whatever it is, like that you can, kind of game, or even reward, like keeping car times down and sales up is the name of the game. So maybe, Drew, do you want to speak to timers a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, the timers were always, it was tough at first. It was a tough adjustment, of course, when you don't have anything like that. If you don't have any that we used little hand timers for a while, but that's nothing like a consistent timer in your face. And it is fun. It does create a lot of fun for the baristas, and it is shop to shop, or shift to shift, or like who's going to work window and who's going to work shots, and who's going to be the fastest this day. And it also helps baristas know order of operation. So like how fast you make drinks, you can actually gauge your movements, and so it teaches baristas a lot of speed too. But I mean, having those timers was a huge game for us. How fast all of our baristas were pretty much across the board, just because they were suddenly aware of all of their movements.
It's not a pricey spend. It's usually a couple $1,000. I know that may sound a little bit like gouge at the beginning, but for what you make on it in the long run, by just giving some people some accountability and just giving your manager some visibility when they're not there on how car times are actually doing. We did it for a long time. Somebody parks across the street and watches car times, as an accountability measure. Like that's extra labor that you're doing on top of the labor that you have in your stands, instead of if you just drop in a timer, and you can see all those things.
It's funny. I like to go to the Richland roasters now and just give the baristas a hard time when their car times are low. Just people work 31, like, and your car times are looking a little poor there, guys.
All righty, let's open it up for a little bit of question and answer. I just want to show you guys this real quick. So this sheet here is down in your assets down here underneath grand opening. I think I dropped it. Yeah, here, running system. So the PDF is there. You can download it there just as an awareness where it's at on the smart sheet.